Hey everyone, quick video here. I'm in the midst of editing the video that you're about to watch, and unfortunately I had a bit of an audio bug issue. So the camera microphone that I have, which is the Video Mic Go, actually has wireless interference with anything Wi-Fi around it. So if there's a close Wi-Fi signal, you get this weird feedback. It sounds like someone's hitting drums on the microphone constantly. Now, I'm sitting here and editing. I try to tone it down as much as I can, but the problem is it's running at a frequency that's very comparable to my actual voice, meaning that every single time I try to compress it, I'm compressing my voice as well, and it's really hard to understand what I'm saying and hear me, whatnot. So basically, I tried the best that I could, but I just want to kind of forewarn you guys who are going to watch this video. Turn down your speakers a little bit. If you were watching this around half volume than you normally would watch a video, it's not so noticeable. I feel, unfortunately, for anyone who's using earphones or headphones, that you're going to be prone to hear it a lot more often, regardless of actually what volume you're listening to it at. So. I apologize. Usually I turn off the Wi-Fi. I have to unplug my router to record anything with this camera because of that microphone. But, this is something that just completely slipped my mind. I don't have time to re-record the video either. So, this is unfortunately going to have to stay. But, again, I'll keep that in mind going forward in the future. I usually do remember, but, I just want to let you guys know who are watching this. Turn down your speakers a little bit. And other than that, I hope that the video comes across fine and you're able to enjoy it nonetheless. So, talk with you guys later, and I appreciate your patience as I am dealing with these issues. Thanks.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I wanted to do a video discussing my sort of updated thoughts on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X now that we've had these consoles for about half a year. I did my first, sort of week one impressions back when those consoles first came out around 6 months ago. So this video is really going to sort of be a continuation of that. I'm going to sort of touch upon the issues that I had back then when I made that video, as well as any new issues that I have now with the consoles, and kind of just wanted to discuss how I feel about their growth so far. Do I feel like they're in a good place? Do I feel like they're making steady progress towards where they need to be as sort of, feature-rich platforms? So that's what I'm going to be discussing in this video today. I'm going to try and keep this a bit short. I'm going to run through a list here that I have of just kind of general things that I've written down, and we'll kind of go on from there. If, of course, you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you guys if you want to know anything specific that I haven't discussed in this video. Alright, so let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. I was really impressed when I first used the consoles and that they came out, and I'm still really very much enjoying the platforms. I feel that, in many respects, on the Xbox side, you really see a refinement of really sort of the general use platform that you're kind of used to at this point. However, on PlayStation 5, it's almost like a completely new experience, and that's sort of the route that both these companies decided to go. Microsoft is more about, let's refine our current vision, let's just make it super smooth, let's, kind of keep on building on top of that platform that we've already built, while Sony sort of did, what typically every generation of gaming has done prior, which is a hard reboot on top of everything. You got a brand new UI, you got brand new features, new ways of doing things. It's a completely brand new platform. So, first of all, I just want to say that I'm really am enjoying both consoles in their current state. I don't have any particular issues in terms of hardware or anything like that. So far, I played a bunch of games on these platforms. I was hardcore playing my PS5. I played through the entirety of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Demon's Souls, and Spider-Man Miles Morales on that platform, and not even a single hitch or anything like that. I think I had a game freeze, but that could be the game. It's not really the console. But in terms of any console-specific issues, the PlayStation 5 has been relatively smooth. I actually haven't run into any issues with that. There were a few problems that I had in terms of, I would consider them software glitches back when I was first using the platform, but these have since been corrected. So I think one of the issues that I was talking about was in regards to my controller charging, that the DualSense wouldn't charge using the USB ports on the console. That was fixed months and months ago. So far everything's been perfectly fine. I have run into another issue though, and this is very, very specific to myself. I don't think many of you guys are gonna, even come across this. But the way in which I capture gameplay for videos, at least on the PS5, is I just use the built-in recorder that's on the console, right? And when I try to actually move files over from the console's storage to my USB drive, I always get an error. And it doesn't matter if I format the drive as exFAT or NFTS, if I try to do a hard reset to it to FAT32 even, it's always completely errors on that flash drive. However, strangely enough, if I use a different flash drive that has the same file storage extension, it goes, runs through perfectly fine. So I don't know if that's just an issue with my flash drive, or maybe it's just something where something happened with the console. I mean, that's my main flash drive I usually use, but I have other ones that I can use. So it's a small issue. Again, very specific to myself. I don't think many of you guys are going to run into that problem, but if you are someone who likes to basically capture gameplay from your PS5 and you're going to use that for YouTube videos or something like that, not all flash drives, at least from my experience, work. And that doesn't matter what you try to format the file extension as. That's really kind of the only issue that I'm kind of running across right now. There seems to be no fix in place for Sony, at least. But again, it's a very unique issue to me, and or to a very small group of people. So I don't imagine that even if it is something that is problematic, and maybe it's happening for a lot of other people, I don't know if it will get fixed right away. But that's pretty much the major problem that I'm going through right now with the console. Other than that, everything's been perfectly fine. They've fixed a lot of the issues. They've also added features as well. So a good thing for me, they actually added, in terms of the system level, the ability to toggle on and off HDR as well as to leave it on automatic mode, which is great. So the PS5 always pushed HDR to whatever content that you're watching. It didn't matter if it was, movies. It didn't matter if it was TV shows or games. Even for games that didn't support HDR, it would still push it, and then I guess it would compress the gamut from an SDR range. It didn't look that good, and it wasn't accurate, and it wasn't, it wasn't true HDR. So in that case, they've actually allowed it now where you can set the system to automatically turn on HDR whenever, or turn off HDR, I should say, whenever a game that doesn't support it runs, which is awesome. So that means that all those PS4 backwards compatible titles that you run on your PS5, if they don't have HDR, it will just switch it off automatically, which is great. You don't have to go back into the settings each time and turn them on and turn it off, which is awesome. I really do have to say that. Now, I still want Sony to sit there and do like a list, create like a list of all the games installed, and then allow you to turn on and off features, from games on that list. I feel that would be a huge help, because, in the case of games that do support HDR, if you have like Cyberpunk 2077, which doesn't, it's fake HDR, and that's been proven, and I don't know if the developers have fixed it or not, but it would be nice to say, okay, even though Cyberpunk technically supports HDR, I want to turn it off at the system level. That way, I can get you get a much more vivid, better picture essentially with SDR than HDR. You can toggle it on and off per game. I would love it if they allowed that feature, but we're gonna have to wait and see. The other thing as well, they have now allowed you to turn on and off 120 hertz mode, or at least leave it on automatic for the system to detect. Now, there's an issue here with me. I have a HDMI 2.0 TV. I don't have an HDMI 2.1 television, which means I can do 1440p 120 hertz and 1080p 120 hertz, but I can't do 4K 120 hertz. So for me, and this is a bit frustrating, because while the Series X, it shows it, on my system that you can actually play games in 1440p 120 hertz. On the PS5, there is no 1440p output at this current time, and even if you go down to 1080p, at least on my television, it doesn't detect 120 hertz availability, which kind of blows, and I don't know how to work around it. Even if I set my resolution to be 1080p and just flatline it there, and don't select 2160p, it does not. basically detect 120 frames per second as a viable output. And that kind of sucks, because essentially what that means for me is 120 hertz is completely off the table for me on PS5. I should be able to choose my resolution, and then it maxes out the bandwidth for that resolution. You know, because not everyone is sitting here with the latest Samsung or LG OLED, you know, with HDMI 2.1 capabilities. But you know, for someone like me, it's like, okay, I'm not buying a new TV anytime soon. You know, and I can play 120 hertz now. I would like to do it in 1440p, which I still think Sony needs to support that output. This is literally. It would take no effort for them to literally do, because all you're doing is creating an output resolution. You can go right now on your PC, and it takes about, you know, 10 seconds for you to create a custom resolution on your PC, and then set the bandwidth and the you know, for that resolution, and you know, as long as your monitor technically can output that, you know, you have yourself a custom resolution. So it literally takes no effort whatsoever. All Sony needs to do is create another output resolution. But 1440p, leaving that off the cards, I feel is it's a big annoying, you know, thing, in my opinion, because some people may have 1440p monitors. Some people may prefer 120 hertz, but don't want to sit there and deal with 4 times less the resolution of 4K. They'd rather go down to 1440p, because 1440p still scales nicely on a 4K screen. Again, it would take no effort, but there's no word from Sony that they're even considering doing this as an option. I really hope that they do down the line. But for me, you know, personally, this sucks, because 120 hertz is not even an option for me in my output resolution, because I think what the PS5 is automatically doing is just always maxing out the bandwidth of that of your television. So that means that regardless of, even if your TV is HDMI 2.0, you can do 1440p, you can do 1080p at 120 frames per second. Because you're limited to 60 hertz at 4K, it will only output to 60 hertz regardless of the resolution. It needs to be corrected. I feel like they need to do a better job at it, because Microsoft, you know, has a better handle on these things. Being completely honest with you, there's so many options there, and even though I feel like the PS5 does do better in some respects in terms of its output, video settings and audio settings and whatnot, you know, the Xbox just makes it more simpler. You know, you have a toggle for your refresh rate, you have a toggle for your resolution, and it literally tells you everything your TV supports in a list. And Sony kind of does that, but they don't. It's not truly indicative of what your television supports in the end. So it's something that I think really needs to look into. Sony does, and additionally with that, I also want to talk about VRR and ALLM. VRR is a major missing problem for me, you know, with this console. I should say missing feature. Now, I know Sony's working on this, but it's been 6 months later, and I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see, you know, FreeSync added sometime in like May or April. And to be completely honest with you guys, I've been buying my games on the Xbox Series X partly for this reason, you know. Resident Evil 8 just came out. I picked up the game on release, and I got it for the Xbox Series X. Why? Because I could play it literally in ray tracing mode, and because the Series X supports FreeSync, variable refresh rate, I literally, like playing the game, you don't see any dips whatsoever. Like, it's literally imperceptible, you know, to the human eye, because VRR is just handling all the stutters and the screen tearing and everything like that. So even though that the PS5, you know, technically, you know, the Series X still has dips in the ray tracing mode in Resident Evil 8, but because VRR is there, it makes them imperceptible. It allows you to play that game in ray tracing mode, and you know, you get all the beautiful graphics, and you don't see anything. It looks like it's 60 FPS all the time. VRR is super important. I know not everyone has a TV that supports that, but they're becoming much more commonplace right now. And on top of that, you know, there's a lot of games that just came out, like Returnal, you know, just came out a few weeks ago. That's a game that, you know, even though it's pretty solidly tight on 60 FPS, it does have some dips. VRR would smooth that out, so it looks like it's perfect every single time. I really feel like it's a big missing feature. Sony really needs to focus on that and get that out the door fast. I really expected it would have been done by now, but we got, Ratchet and Clank coming up, we have Biomutant coming up, we have Scarlet Nexus coming up, we got all these games coming out, which are, I expect, they're going to have 60 FPS modes, or they're going to run at some type of high frame rate, and you're going to want VRR just in case any of those dips happen. I mean, even the Mass Effect Legendary Edition just came out, and there are dips on the PS5. Literally, they would be completely imperceptible if VRR was on the console. So this is a major thing that I think Sony really needs to get out fast. Again, I really expected this to be out sometime in March or April, but they're kind of taking a long time. I know everyone's got a lot on their plate, both Sony and Microsoft. They're trying to manufacture these consoles. They're trying to get everything finished and out there and have people purchase the machines, and games are being developed and whatnot. So I know a lot of stuff is happening, but this would be this is really important. And literally, for me personally, I've been buying a lot of my games on the Series X, quite specifically because I can play them regardless of the frame rate drops on that console. I can enjoy them on that machine without even seeing them, like Resident Evil 8, or the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I hope they get that added quick. The other thing is ALLM. Now, I said in my initial Week 1 impressions that I was going to continue to use my Series X for watching 4K Blu-rays. However, there has been some new information that has come out. The professional reviewers have basically dissected the movie playback on both the PS5 and the Series X. And it has been proven that the PlayStation 5 actually gives you a higher color depth and bit rate for 4K movies than the Series X. I would say they're probably imperceptible to the average person, right? But, the PS5 technically does outperform the Series X when it comes to Blu-ray movie playback and 4K Blu-ray movie playback. Now, I don't think this should be much of a surprise. It was a bit of a surprise to me, but to be honest, Sony has a long history of creating some of the best Blu-ray players, and if you remember, the PlayStation 3, when it came out, I mean, it was basically giving you a comparable experience to like brands like Oppo and these $1,000 Blu-ray players at the time that you could have gotten with a $600 PS3. So Sony has a long history of really, providing quality Blu-ray player movie playing feedback on their platforms. With the exception of really the PS4, which was a huge down, a step in the wrong direction. It was like back 10 steps compared to the PlayStation 3 at the time, which supported so many more options and still does to this day over the PS4. However, the PS5 here. So my point is that I've been watching 4K Blu-rays on the PS5 instead of the Series X. Now, the problem is that I really feel like Sony needs to allow ALLM, which is auto low latency mode. So when I'm playing, movies on my system, on my PS5, I have to go into my TV settings and turn off game mode and then turn on movie mode to get the most accurate color preset. Now, to the average person, again, you may not care about doing this, but if you are... My thing is, if you are a person who probably cares about 4K Blu-rays, then you care about having an accurate picture, you care about quality, you're going to want to make sure that you have basically the correct presets and everything like that on your TV to watch these movies in as close to reference quality as you possibly can. If you're going to invest in 4K movies, then you're probably going to care about that stuff anyway. So the thing for me is that ALLM would be nice. It's not, a big important thing, but again, it would be nice that I don't have to go in there to my TV every single time to change game mode off and then make sure movie mode is enabled. Because with ALLM, what it would essentially do is just do it automatically. And the Series X supports this, which is nice, and the PS5, again, doesn't support this. So, other than that, I have to say that that's pretty much the only issues that I have with the system. They're very specific. They're not so, they're not so detrimental to really your enjoyment of the platform by any means, but they would go a long way in terms of making it just that much more enjoyable, that much more efficient. If the console can just do these things automatically. And I know it can do these things automatically because their competitor is doing it automatically. So that's that. Now I want to talk about the controller, the DualSense controller, after having used it for now half a year. I like the DualSense controller a lot. However, I've come to the conclusion that I actually feel the DualShock 4 is a little bit more comfortable for me. I think that the DualSense controller is great in terms of its features. I love the microphone built in. When I did that Resident Evil Maiden demo video, that was all recorded from the console, and my voice was recorded by the controller. It sounded fucking great. It actually sounded very passable. Like honestly, you could get away with doing YouTube videos with live commentary and gameplay with literally no additional cost for a capture card mic or anything like that, just using the controller's built-in microphone. And it sounds good. You know, I didn't notice any crackling that much. You can watch that demo video yourself if you want to. I mean, it's very much watchable. It's very much watchable. So I really have to give them, you know, just a round of applause just for the features that are in that controller, because it's very, very fucking impressive. The battery life on the controller has also been great. It's lasted, I would say, longer than the DualShock 4, absolutely. You know, a general run-by-run play. I still charge the controllers every night, but that's more so out of habit. But they would probably last me 2 days of like hardcore playing, which I'd say that's pretty good for me. So I very much like the controller. However, in terms of just the way it feels, it is fatter, it's larger. I do think that my hands and just the way I hold the controllers and whatnot, I feel more comfortable using the DualShock 4 controller. So I do have to say that I do think that that controller is the most comfortable one that Sony's ever made. However, I really like the features that are built into the DualSense 5, excuse me, DualSense I should just call it, controller that Sony has done with the PS5. And I really have no major issues with the controller using it or anything like that. I just wanted to actually, you know, sort of voice my opinion on terms of the comfort level. I do have to say that I like the DualSense controller a lot more than the Xbox Series X controller. The Xbox Series X controller is a great, it's a good controller, and they went in the right direction with it. I feel like a lot of my issues with the Xbox One controller, in terms of the way the bumpers felt, in terms of the way the triggers felt, all that has been kind of corrected. However, the controller is a lot smaller now, and what I've noticed for myself is that during really long sessions of play, you know, and this is a rare thing again for me as well, but sometimes my hands do kind of, I don't want to say cramp up, because I know a lot of people have been saying that recently about the controllers. I don't think they're cramping up as necessarily, but I do feel more fatigue after using the Xbox Series X controller for a prolonged time rather than the DualSense controller. I don't know if it's the materials or whatnot, or the size of the controller. It's not so, again, it's not so detrimental at all by any means, but you know, it is more of an iterative upgrade, and they did shrink the controller ever so slightly, and you know, on top of that, you know, they made some little improvements here or there. So I still like the Series X controller. However, I didn't feel that necessarily on the Xbox One controller. I didn't feel that fatigueness, if I'm being quite honest with you. Now, the Series X is nice, where you can actually just use your Xbox One controllers on that console if you want to. But, you know, for me personally, I've always been the type of guy who, you know, if I'm going to buy a next-gen system, I'm going to use the next-gen peripherals. You know, I used the Xbox One controller for an entire generation, 7 years during that console's life cycle. I'm going to use the new hardware. So, you know, I'm going to continue to use the Series X controller, but it's nice that you do have that flexibility to just say, you know what, I like the Xbox One controller better. I'm going to use that controller versus the Series X controller. So that's pretty much it in terms of, you know, I touched upon the PS5 controller, I touched upon that system. I want to go into this Series X right now. Now, again, a lot of the problems that I have with the Series X in terms of the software glitches and stuff have since been corrected. I have had less issues with the Series X software versus the PS5 software. However, that also may be because the Series X software is essentially built on an already existing platform. It's the same dashboard that's on the Xbox One, you know, and we've now gotten used to it. You know, one thing I do want to say is I think the share features are just solely lacking in the Series X, and just the Xbox One and that platform, it was lacking there too, but it's so evident now with the incredible capabilities and the share features on the PS5, just how far Microsoft is behind in terms of the share features on the Series X. Why I can't sit here and record long gameplay clips and then move them over to a flash drive like I can on the PS5 is just ridiculous. I mean, they let you only do 2 minutes, I think, at 4K. You get 5 minutes. I think you get 5 minutes at 1080p and like 10 minutes at 720p. You know, it's a bit weird to me. You know, so basically what's going on is, you know, it would be nice if I can just sit here and have the console record my gameplay, move that footage over to a flash drive, and then give you guys the gameplay on the direct capture gameplay from the console. But you can't do that because you can only capture 2-minute videos essentially in 4K resolution and up to 5 minutes in 1080p, and it sucks. It does. The Series X share features are complete crap. It's nice that they added the share button on the controller. I like that when I'm playing a game, I can just hit a button, boom, instant screenshot, or click it twice, boom, you know, instant video, or do anything like that. It's nice that you have that flexibility. I don't have to go into the menu now and do this combination of buttons and hotkeys in order to get the screenshot. It's much more efficient in that respect. However, actually sharing stuff it just feels like a generation behind. It feels like it hasn't evolved in the entire generation of the Xbox One, which honestly it hasn't. Honestly, the only thing that they added was 4K capture ever since the Xbox One X came out. You know, they added the ability to capture games in 4K, but honestly, they haven't done much with the share features on the console since, you know, its inception on the Xbox One. It's just solely lacking, and it sucks, and it basically forces me to do a workaround with capturing gameplay for you guys. So I am considering doing an updated how I make videos on YouTube video for you guys because it is a bit interesting, but essentially what I've been using to capture my Xbox Series X footage is the Xbox streaming test app, which isn't even available to the public yet. I had to do a workaround to basically download it from the Microsoft Store and try to mask my account as if I'm a developer in order to get that app. But there's no game streaming available on the Series X in terms of streaming your game from the console. You know, you can do it to your mobile phone, but you can't do it to a computer, which is really kind of shitty in my opinion. To me, it's like you're using the same platform as the Xbox One, so why are there features missing that are available on the Xbox One? Especially something like game streaming to Windows 10 PCs. You know, you wouldn't think that would be a missing feature at all. So there is that. You know, I also want to say that you know, in terms of positive stuff, Microsoft has actually added a lot of new features as well. So now the game tells you right up front, which is awesome, which features the console supports. So if you're playing a game like a last generation game, let's just say, and they added in FPS boosts, which is awesome. So if you haven't heard, Microsoft is actually upping the frame rate of some of these 30 FPS games to 60, and some of these 60 FPS games to 120 frames per second, which is incredible. So they actually tell you when you pause the game, if you open up the dashboard, it will say FPS boost, it will say auto HDR, it will say quick resume. I like that Microsoft is really showing you, okay, these are the features that this game supports. It is awesome. I have seen quick resume, by the way, in action. It works flawlessly. And what's great on top of this is that you can actually go into the game options, not within the game itself, but on the dashboard. You go into your manage game options, and you can actually choose and disable these features game by game, which is what Sony really needs to do on their OS, but you can do it on the Xbox Series X now. So if you don't want HDR or auto HDR on some of these original Xbox or 360 games, you think it looks like crap, turn it off. If you're seeing issues with the FPS boost on some of these games, you can turn those off. You can turn off all these different features. So it's great that you have the flexibility to do that game by game because, you know, yeah, these updates are made at a system level, and sometimes, you know, you do run into some of these issues because essentially what you're doing is emulating the effect of a higher frame rate or emulating the effect of HDR. You're simulating it on these games that weren't even built for it to begin with. So it's nice that you can actually disable these at whim, and it looks great, and it's just nice flexibility. I really got to give credit to Microsoft for that because they've pretty much been on top of things relatively quickly. Now I'm actually in the alpha ring for preview updates on the Xbox Series X and just their consoles. So I get updates literally week by week. It's like every single week there's a new system update. So a lot of these features maybe I don't know if you guys may not necessarily have if you're just stuck with your general system updates, but I can tell you that Microsoft is very on top of it. They're very, very much on top of it, which I gotta give them a lot of credit for. And yeah, other things I think I mentioned in my previous video, my week 1 impressions that ALLM wasn't working on the Series X. That has since been corrected, not by the console, but by my TV. I guess the Samsung Q6FN I'm using had a system update about a month or so after the console's launched, which then added in support for the new console. So ALLM is now working on the Series X for me, so no issues there. I think that pretty much covers it, if I'm being completely honest here. I'm just taking a look at my list here. Everything is pretty much just kind of by the by. You know, where I feel the consoles are at. You know, I really like the PS5 a lot, and I feel like Sony's been doing a great job at supporting the games for that platform. I mean, you already got a list of great native PS5 games to play. You got Ratchet and Clank coming up at next month. You know, it's in a matter of weeks at this point, which looks tremendous. It looks incredible. You got Returnal, which just came out. You know, which, you know, even if that game isn't for you, it's like great having an actual exclusive PS5 game available on the market. You got you know, Demon Souls earlier at the launch of the consoles, which was great, and you know, all those other PS5 games and stuff. So I really feel like Sony's done a better job at sort of giving you these native, you know, PlayStation 5 experiences that kind of you're utilizing the console. And I'll be honest with you, the Xbox, you know, if it wasn't for a lot of those features that supported, like let's say the PS5 supported VRR and, you know, a lot of those features, some of those games I may be getting on the PS5, but what's saving the Xbox for me is those features that Sony just doesn't support. Again, it was really the only reason I bought Resident Evil Village on this Series X. I'm like, wow, I can play Resident Evil Village with ray tracing enabled and not have a single dip, or not have a single perceptible, I should say, dip in performance. It's going to look like it's perfectly smooth. Gee, wonder which platform I'm going to get the game for, you know? It's like, obviously you want to experience the game in its full graphical entirety, and there's a lot of other games like that, you know? So, yeah, I really feel like these features are important to the overall experience. They're actually affecting my purchasing decisions and where I get these games for and which platform. And, you know, again, not everyone's going to have a VRR display. Not everyone's going to have, you know, a TV with ALLM capabilities and stuff like that. But a lot of this just kind of adds up. And in terms of the efficiency and the ease of use and stuff, you know, I just feel like in terms of where the Series X is, it's in a better place. However, the issue with the Series X, of course, is that you're not really missing out on anything. I mean, let's be honest here. There are no native Series X games available besides the Medium, which is really not even a AAA game. I'm not even counting that as a AAA exclusive. I don't think anyone should. It is a AA or indie game at its best, and you know, it came out with a 7 on Metacritic or whatever it was. I'm gonna play the game, I will, but you know, again, we're still waiting. It's been half a year since the Series X has launched, and we're still waiting for an exclusive. We don't know when Halo Infinite is coming out. I mean, Halo Infinite was rumored to be slated for a late June release. That's clearly not happening. So here we are, and we're almost, you know, we're half a year into the Series X's lifespan. There's not a single game that's taking full advantage from Microsoft of the hardware. A single native developed Xbox Series X game meant only for that console. And it's a bit weird, you know, it just, that in itself is, I can understand for a lot of people, it's like, well, you know, I'm not missing out on anything with the Series X. Even if you're not interested in PC gaming, you're still not necessarily missing out on anything. I think it's great that that Microsoft has been adding FPS boost and auto HDR and all these backwards compatible enhancements to these games, which is great, you know, basically when you want to play these older games and stuff. But most people are not going to sit here and have the type of game collections that I do, or that you may have. You know, the general person's picking up a console, they're going to play the occasional AAA game here or there, and there's really not much besides the stuff that's already available on the PlayStation 5. And so, you know, it's a bit, I really think Microsoft needs to get their ass in gear when it comes to creating games for the platform. Is Halo Infinite really the only thing that we have looking forward to this year? Kind of seems like it. I can't think of another exclusive to the Series X that was announced that's coming out this year? I can't think of one. I know that Microsoft bought all these studios, and that's great, but a lot of those games are coming out, I would say another 2-3 years. I know some people are saying that Starfield's going to come out this year. Even if Starfield is an exclusive to Xbox, which I think it's all but confirmed it's going to be, and I fully expect it is, awesome. When's that coming out? I don't think it's going to be this year. Starfield's not coming out this year. We don't even know what the game's going to look like. They're not going to sit here and announce what the game's going to look like, and then and say the game's coming out in like 3 months. It's not going to happen. So yeah, it's something that's wholly lacking on Microsoft's part, to get these games out there for the console, and that I can understand. I can understand everything that I talked about today. Everyone's like, that's great, but if I get a Series X, what am I missing out on? I mean, you're missing out on a lot when it comes to the PS5, but, if you're getting a PS5, you're not missing out on anything. You're not. The medium? Who's buying a console for that game? No one. So, yeah. I mean, that's where the consoles are at, in my opinion. I do feel like we're going in a good direction. I feel like in terms of the features and support, Microsoft has had a better handle on fixing a lot of these issues than Sony has. Sony's kind of dragging their feet with stuff like VRR, which is incredibly important, and some other nice things to have like ALLM. They've added some nice stuff like the toggle for HDR and the toggle for 120 hertz, but it's so limited in what it does that it doesn't, it's kind of like, okay, it works great sometimes, and then other times it doesn't really help you out at all. So, yeah, I'm really positive about where the consoles are going, but I wanted to create a video that sort of discussed where I feel about them at this point in time. And I feel that while the PS5 has been much more exciting to use, it's been, I would say, the more definitive next generation experience over the Series X. Abso-fucking-lutely. There has been this sense that Sony's been dragging their feet with some updates on things. Microsoft, it's the complete opposite. It's like, wow, a lot of stuff is being added. Wow, a lot of stuff is getting fixed. Great. Well, I'm playing these cross-generation games, and I'm playing these third-party games that I can play on your competitor's platform. What is there available that shows the true advantage and power of this machine? And there's really nothing right now. So, yeah, that's it. This video went on a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but again, this is going to be sort of my final definitive thoughts on where the consoles are at. I'm not going to make a year later video, at least I don't think I am, unless you guys want me to. But yeah, again, that's sort of where I'm at with my feelings on the consoles. So we're good. Things have been great so far. No hardware issues whatsoever. The consoles have been whisper quiet. I clean the consoles regularly, of course, as you should as well. And so everything with the consoles has been fine in terms of its performing with games. Some software stuff aside, all that can be fixed in a system update, hopefully sooner rather than later. And for any of you guys who have a PS5 or maybe you have a Series X, do you feel the same about what I'm discussing here, about some of these features that I think should be added, or I think that are taking a long time to be added? Do you guys, agree with me about my thoughts on the PS5 controller versus the Series X controller? Which one do you guys prefer? And for any of you guys who, again, you don't have these consoles yet, you're still trying to get these consoles, let me know if you guys have any specific questions. I'm happy to answer them and go on from there, right? So I know this was a long video, but hopefully I communicated to you guys about my true feelings regarding the console, and you now understand where I'm coming from and where I'm at. And yeah, happy to hear what you guys think and discuss more below in the comments. So have a good one, and thank you all so much for watching.